Welcome to my channel. I'm Campbell. Today we are going to be drawing necks. Necks don't get a lot of attention. Faces sure do, but necks don't. So this is added on to my 5 and 5 practice series. And with this, I am offering, these are all real-time free tutorials here on my drawing channel. If you want a copy of this PDF, you can actually just request it in the comments and I will shoot you a link. And these are all the other lessons that we've done here: eyes, nose, mouth, ears. We've done hairstyles, face shapes, eyebrows, and today we are doing necks. So the idea is we do about 5 minutes per each one. And if you do just a little bit of practice every day, because you cannot get worse with more practice. So just a little practice every day can really, really increase and skyrocket your drawing skills. So this whole workshop free series is set up to kind of get you kick started. All right, so necks are funny things because there's not much to them drawing wise, but there's a lot to them shading wise. So in all things, I always like to set up my drawings, and no matter what I'm doing, in 3 steps. I start with the shape, number 1. The second thing I do is I add the values, which is usually comes in the form of blending. And then the last one is details. So there's not a lot of details in a neck because they're pretty big and like one singular item, not like hands, you know, which have like infinite details. So I left in the reference pictures the bottom of the jaw too, so you could get the width of the neck in comparison. I have to say, I wish that I had a whole sheet of paper because I like to draw big. This is very small and harder to see. Sorry, I'm sipping my coffee this morning. And this is what I do to kind of get myself in the drawing mood. I have a little ritual, a little coffee, have my little calculator out or stopwatch out, because I don't want to, the idea is to do a quick practice because you get more practice in that way. Rather than belaboring something for hours and hours and hours, it kind of actually forces us, when you set a little timer for 5 minutes, to like only focus on the big things that matter. And yeah, because you can spend all day futzing. And this idea is the broader things. What is the shape? What is the value? What's the quick details? And then move on to the next one. And it's just, it's almost like a little school homework. So let's just draw in the jaw here. And I have a whole nother video on face shapes. Actually, I'm going to start with the chin because it's right at the bottom here. And then it kind of goes up on this side, and then we take like a left turn and go straight up. Same thing here. We go this, and then it kind of goes straight up. Okay, so the neck, I'm noticing, like, if these are just lines, because we're just outlining the shape. Oh, I didn't start my clock. Big dum-dum. I just got it all set up here, and then I proceeded not to use it. Where's my little stopwatch? And start. All right, so we have the face shape here, and then I'm noticing the neck line starts, here's this little angle, here's that little angle. It kind of starts right about here. So not halfway, but a little bit further back than halfway. Whoop. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. So here, and this just goes straight down. And then same thing for this side. Here's that little turn, and so it's about here. And then, okay, it just goes, and then the shoulders begin. Okay, so now what the heck else do we do? Where is more shape? Well, I'm also noticing a shape here as well. So I'm gonna draw whatever I see, I'm gonna actually draw. So here's this, and by the way, I'm just working with a soft pencil. This is a black wing. It's about equivalent to a 4B. So this is all I'm using. So I see these little lines here, and I also see a line here and a line here this way. And I'm also noticing lines that go this way. So these are just drawing the shapes. There's one, I see 3 of these lines. I see another one here. And then I see a super faint one like here. So as far as lines are concerned, do I see any other ones? I see like a little, there's something going on here as well. Okay, so that's the overall shape. Number two, our second step is value. So for this, I'm going to use my blending stump. And this is where, and this is why I have this in black and white too, is you can really squint your eyes and you see how dark it is right there? That's like super dark. So we gotta take our blending stump and we're gonna blend this graphite out because we have this super duper dark shape. And it's more on the right side than over here. It kind of, the shape comes this way, and I'm just drawing what I'm seeing. I'm not making this up. There is also shading on the face, which you can do, but you don't have to because we're not really doing the face shape right now. We're just doing the neck. And then where else is it not like super white? Well, we have, these lines aren't quite as like sharp as they are there, so we can kind of use the blending stump to kind of blend them out a little bit. And there is a little bit on either side, there is a little, it's a little bit darker than in the middle. So I'm gonna just really super lightly kind of do that. Just blend them a little bit. And then we'll see, you see this area right back here? That's a kind of a darker area. And again, these lines, I did them a little bit too dramatically. They're not quite as crazy dark as those are. So I'm gonna blend them out with my blending stick here, and then I'm noticing also here is kind of darker. And then I'll just kind of coat the whole thing. So it looks like these lines are a little bit much, and it's a little bit overly shaded and dramatic. So what I'm gonna do is I have, the only other tool I'm using is an eraser. And I'm just gonna, this is number 3, which is kind of details, which is take the eraser and kind of like carve back out any areas that are too overshaded. So in this case, this is called a vanish eraser. And it's actually so good at lifting. So sometimes if I overdo, I can just like pounce an area lighter. So I don't have to erase it away, but this way it literally just kind of lifts. Because those lines on the neck are actually super light. They're just barely there. Same thing, this over here, like that's a really, really very subtly shaded area. And so what I had was too dark. So we can kind of knock it back with the eraser. And then instead of drawing back in any areas that I need to, like, that may have got lifted too much with the eraser, I'll just use my blending stump, which is always nice and dirty. People always say, how do I clean my blending stump? And I'm always like, why would you clean your blending stump? It's like only works well if it's super dirty. So yeah, nice and dirty blending stump is what you want. And then any place that needs a little extra shady boost, if you lifted too much, you can again just put back in with your dirty blending stump. So you have this push and pull, and right now we have 5 minutes exactly. And the only thing that you need to kind of razor in on is the fact that there's this area of gray, there's a lot of values in here. So I just want to pause to take note of that. This right here, this is a very, very, very dark area. And it's not the same dark area everywhere. That's super dark, and then it switches and it gets lighter as it gets to these kind of line areas. So this level of subtlety is what you want to be paying close attention to when you're really shading anything. This is not unique to necks. This is the kind of thing we look for when you're drawing everything. And again, every time you get, well, how that's darker there and that's kind of darker there. But if it doesn't need to be that dark, you can just pounce it out with your eraser and then add it back in. So it's almost like sculpting where you have, take a little bit away, add a little bit, take a little bit away, add a little bit. So, and again, you use your eraser to carve out those details. You can get pretty nitpicky with the neck as well. And if it's too choppy looking, you can just take and kind of blend the whole thing. Blend it out. But you have those really, really, really subtle variations that I want you to start paying attention to. Because there's a lot going on in that little tiny shaded region. There's quite a lot. So let's jump to the next one. And every time the light source changes, it changes the nature of the shadows. So here the light source is coming on the left, which is why you have it more on the right. And then in here you have a different shading. You have, it's super dark here, but then it's like the shading is here. Do you see that? You can see the shaded area itself makes shapes that you have to draw with your blending stump. Super, super subtle. All right, let's get the second one going. So start. Okay, so we have this one, she has a very round face shape. She doesn't have all of the kind of angles that the first one did. And so this one, it's sort of like, it just comes, the neck comes off. It's not the same width as the head, but it's not, doesn't have this much area coming either. So it's pretty wide still. And I think that's a common, it's a pretty common, I'm not gonna say mistake, but like we wanna make a really thin neck. And I know when I'm doing whimsical people, which just simply means like not realistic, I love a super skinny neck, but in reality, necks are pretty thick. So it's not as, kind of not as sexy. So right away, I don't need to draw anything with my pencil. This is all gonna be done using the blending stump. This is all just variations of shadow. So we have under here the same thing. See how the neck is all shady right here? So, and it's really like concentrated more towards the center. Now, because I'm using a really thick pencil, in actuality, this line of the face should be like really, really thin. You know, but it's hard because they're really small little pictures. And then I'm just gonna, again, I'm gonna use my blending stump, and I see a shadow that's right down the middle. So I'm literally just gonna go like this, it's kind of like that. We have the under the chin, which if we're gonna be really nitpicky, is only really towards the center, because this is all highlighted here. And again, these extra drawn lines should be, they're not even shouldn't be there if we're getting super realistic, but I'm trying not to get too swamped down in those, that level of nitpickiness is just for practice. So then I see that this is shaded. So I'm gonna use my blending stump. Right, and then like, what is happening here? Well, this area is kind of dark. So I'm gonna try to just, again, use my blending stump to kind of create that kind of shaded spots. And then over here, what the heck is this? Well, there looks like there's this a light triangle here. So I need to kind of use my blending stump to recreate. And this side is a little bit darker than the other side. There's this pocket right there of dark. So we got to put that in. So here's my blending stump, and I'm gonna just put in exactly what I see. Dark there, dark there. And then what is this? Well, there's a little space. So let's draw that in. And then what the heck is that? I don't know, but let's do it. Let's draw it. If we see it, we got to put it in. So we have this space down the center. We have this. Yeah, we have this little pocket, which kind of comes in here. So we don't need to know anatomy. We just need to know what we're seeing in terms of shading. And then we can try to recreate that on our paper. So don't think because you don't have a big background in art anatomy that you can't draw these things, because really what you need the most of is really sharpened observational skills. Yeah. And it's like this mess of just shapes and shadows. And here's another one where her shirt starts over here. And you have a little shadow right here where the shirt goes. But yeah, it's really, really subtle. But when you start putting them side by side, you're like, oh yeah, there's that weird highlighter reason. There it is over here. Now it's not as accentuated as that is. So you have to kind of kick it back. You can knock it back with your blending stump. So it's not as pronounced, but that is, you know, there's that little weird pocket of shade and we drew it, gosh darn it. And there's this one and there's that one. And we had the neck thing down the center. Those are all, you know, those are all really there. And then her chin is even shaded as well. And then under her lip and up we go. So yeah, so I hope that this practice, and we are right at 5 minutes. Hopefully this practice is so good for your eyeballs, but as much as it is for your fingers and using your drawing instruments to get these correct. All right, let's do the next one. All right, I just started my timer. And again, it's not to be stressy, it's just to keep our eye on the ball and just focusing on the main things that are important. All right, so this one's a little harder because I didn't leave as much space for the kind of face information. So anyways, here is her bottom of her jaw. There's also a braid in the way, but there's some awesome shading here that I wanted to capture. So her neck also really goes in quite a bit before it comes out, but it's still not super long. And then this one we can just kind of guesstimate based on this side. But what I'm seeing here, which is why I chose this one, is you have this really dramatic shading in two places. You have it inside, and then there's this beautiful portion here. So that there's like this really like a V shape here, but the shading of it is really limited to, you know, a strong shading here and up here. And then all of this is like really, really, really dark. It's like all behind her braid. Can do her braid or not do her braid. Doesn't really matter. Messy braid. And then over here, we have the same thing, like her collarbone is like gorgeous and shaded. And then there's her tank. So this is super fun. So again, the first stop was just doing the overall shape. The second, the second thing we need to do is do the value. So again, we have this right here. We have under the chin, and then we have this side, and then it kind of like peters away. So we're gonna have to do some erasing because there's no line right down there. And then there's a little subtle nudge here. On the left-hand side, this gets really shady. So we're gonna just use our blending stump because we don't want that harsh line there. And then on this side, sorry, again, I can take the side of my blending stump, and it's really like down here you can see it's just like a darker value. It's definitely darker than the white of the paper, so you can always feel confident of putting shade anywhere. And then this beautiful V in the center is so pretty. So that is very accentuated little V. And then this side is super duper dark. So again, I'm just using the side of my blending stump. And then this is hair, 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 hair. Hair. Blah, 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 messy braid, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't care about this. All right, so in order to kind of fine tune Let's cast a little shadow. This is like a little strong, so now we can just do some correcting with our blending stump. This line isn't there, so I'm just gonna pounce that back. All the way up to there. Yeah, and then we have this. This line is a little bit more, kind of comes up a little bit more, and then that, just soften it a bit. And then everything is a bit extreme, so you can just pounce back the whole thing to kind of lighten it up. But yeah, but there's the general, it's a little dramatic, but I kind of love it anyways. And just soften the whole thing. So yeah, so there is our gorgeous number 3. And again, I just want to reemphasize, I could spend an hour on that, but that's not the point. We got the overall shape, we got the overall values put in, seen correctly. We shored up the details a little bit, and then we're moving on. So these are quick, designed to be quick, really, again, just to help hone our observational skills. This one is super subtle, which is also why I wanted to pick it. All right, so let's go turn the page. We're gonna reset. Now she has a very strong angular chin here. It's kind of this little node. This is not the most important part because we're really worried about necks and not faces. But I wanted to get it kind of correct because it helps you determine, these angles of the face help determine where the necks come out. So this comes out, again, you have this kind of jaw return, and then it's a little bit, and then we drop it down. And this appears straight because her hair is on either side. Ooh, I think it's a little bit over. Yeah, so it's like hair, hair. So again, let's check out the shape first. The shape is all we want to be focusing on here. It's just a tiny bit of shadow kind of here, right? And then I see a little bit more darker here. That's it. And then we drop down, and the next thing we have is this little U. It's like a little perfect little cup, little whoop right here. And then I see, what other shapes am I noticing? There's a little thing here. And our hair goes beyond, and then here I notice there's a little shape right here. And that's kind of all I'm seeing, but I'm gonna need my blending stump. So remember, this is shape, and then the second one is value. So here is the hair on either side. Hair on either side. And then we just have these super, super small areas to kind of shade in. So there's this one. And then I do notice there's a little shading next to the hair. And then on to the left, we have the kind of a similar situation where it's like this. And then down here, it's not this strong line that I've drawn. It's actually just a very, very soft area of shading that kind of comes in. And then also, this is a little too much. Like it's not really a drawn U, but I can take my blending stump and maybe add that. Looks much better. Just a very whisper little semicircle here. And then, so this one can really all be done with our dirty blending stump. Just kind of toning the whole drawing from hair to hair on either side. There's a model lips up here. So just these subtleties, again, too strong, so just knock it back with my eraser. Too strong over here, knock it back, same thing down here. And this is all super, super futzy. But just again, this whole exercise just helps you pay attention to all these small details. This is much lighter in here, so we can pounce that out. And I don't want to sit here all day futzing, just 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna tap back that a little bit, add a tiny bit back in. The hair is kind of my favorite, actually. So last minute details. And again, mine is much more exaggerated than this one. So anywhere where it's super off, just make that really subtle correction and you're good to go. And again, that's about 4:45. So just enough to get the full concept. And then for the last one, it's a little bigger. Her head is turned a little bit, so it's not as straightforward as like bonk, where it's like lollipopped on here. But I'm going to start my engines. Look at her chin. She's got a big, broad, chinny chin here. This angle kind of goes up like this. And this angle goes up like this. And then her neck is hard to see because it's all in super shadow. I'm just gonna have it come right from here because it's black, so I can't see it at all. And I think her neck is actually like this, and then hair. And then it's coming this way. So that's number one, shape. So number two, value. I'm going to use the side of my blending of my pencil, and I'm going to start sketching because this is in total blackness. And let's see, her hair, we'll say, starts there. And this is all in total shade. This is in total shade, as is over here. Whatever hair. So yeah, we have, let's see, we have this triangle of darkness that I see. And then there's this highlighted line, and then we skip over that piece, and then we do a really dark line there. And then kind of more shady here. And then we have our, this here. All right, so let's take our blending stump and fine tune. So if that's the shape part, and then number two is value. And again, I'm always using the side of my blending stump. So kind of this area is here. So the neck, I'm going to swoop it around to this side. This left-hand side, I'm just going to like use the side of my blending stump, and because there's like neck lines kind of run this way. So that is important directionality when you're drawing, to pay attention to that, even with things like necks. And then we have this sharp little shadow down here, which kind of gives way to the highlighted region over here. So fascinating. And so while this is like I drew like a solid line right here, actually doesn't exist. That should all get softened. The shadow just is like a really soft portion. Now this is much broader than this area. So we'll have to carefully kind of excavate out using our eraser this little highlighted bone. But another great part about these exercises, it really just does reinforce the fact that you don't need, if you have good observational skills, you never need to know the actual anatomy under there. You can do it all by looking. Does it help? Of course, but it doesn't hurt if you don't know it. You can just really hone your observational skills and just draw what you see. Just, it's as simple as that. And in fact, sometimes if you don't understand what you're seeing, it actually helps you draw it even better. That's why it's so hard to draw people like loved ones or a self-portrait, because you're so familiar with a shape of something and the look of something that you can't see it any other way. You actually can't see it objectively. So sometimes there is an advantage of just having zero familiarity with your subject and just strictly drawing what you see. That's why, like in the book Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, they teach like holding portraits upside down, holding your reference pictures upside down, because that stops you from seeing a face, and it starts you from seeing the face as just objects, just a combination of lines and shading, just like what we're doing here. So super interesting, the whole science of how the brain works. Okay, so we have this lovely shaded left side. How are we doing? We have this choppy thing there. And then it also looks like there's some shade up going this way too. I'm not sure if that's shade from the strand or what's happening, but I do kind of see this area here. And now I hope you see why I do all of the references in black and white, because this is when you're trying to learn shapes and shadows, it's much easier to do it if it's in black and white than if it's in color. All right, so this is a little bit too bright, so we can just kind of kick that back a little bit. And if you take a step back, this is the resulting shape. So that one was a good 6 minutes, but so that one was a longer, but it was also a larger and more complicated things going on. So as you can see, what's super interesting about this week's 5-minute practice is that no two necks are the same, and no two jaw lines are the same, and everything changes if your light source changes as well. So it's just really important to, if you're having trouble trying to figure out the neck proportions or shadows, it is helpful if you have a reference photo to like maybe just zoom in on the neck and cut away everything else so you can really focus on that. But necks, realistic and real people are quite wider than we draw them when we're doing kind of fantasy, cartoon, whimsical, semi-realistic. They're quite large, and they're also not very long. Like these look like they have very long neck. Models tend to have very long necks, but even those long model necks still have kind of short necks compared to like fantasy people when we're drawing kind of from our imaginations and whatnot. At least that's how I draw them. So I hope this series is super helpful for you. If you have another face body part that you would like to have included in the series that I haven't yet done, definitely drop me a comment below and let me know. There's no reason I can't add on to this packet. And if you need the PDF, just drop me a comment below and I will grab you that, and I will see you soon with a new video. Have a great week. Bye.